Why is it that some brokers are making millions and millions of dollars in 2 to 6 months in the era of project financing, while many others simply can't? Why is it that some brokers are able to close transactions quickly, while millions of other brokers do something called rainbow chasing, and 2 years of putting their time into rainbow chasing still can't close a transaction? I've got the answer for you. You've got to watch this video. Taimour Zaman from Monetize.ai. My organization assists entrepreneurs and businesses in 3 specific categories. One is project financing internationally. Second is as a private equity firm, we are able to monetize as well as issue banking instruments far cheaper than the market can. And the third area is assisting companies in an area called private placement platforms or trade, and helping companies taking advantage of trusted platforms out there. You know, one of the broker reached out to me just recently and asked that he was doing some reference checks with Monetize.ai, and he noticed that 2 of our associates have made over $11 million in less than 6 months of working with us. And he wanted to know what is it that they're doing differently, because in his experience, quote unquote, he's doing rainbow chasing. He's been rainbow chasing for a few years and he still hasn't been able to close the transaction. He's got a family, he's frustrated, and he's got some evidence from some of the people working with us, that there's money to be made in project financing, and he needs to understand what is it that he's not doing or not doing correctly. I decided to go and ask the entrepreneurs or the brokers that are working with us who are successfully closing transactions, and what are they doing differently, and I thought I'll share them on this video with you. And the key to my interviews with entrepreneurs or brokers that have closed transactions with us, not 100,000 or 300,000, but these are brokers that made over $11 million in less than 6 months of working with us. They're doing 2 things significantly differently than most others are not doing, and they're simply not walking or doing the work required to get there. Number one is they're getting to know the end user customer deeply. That's really important. Most brokers that I meet are simply paper pushers. I call them, I refer to them as joker brokers. Joker brokers. They get some kind of an instrument, or they get some kind of a project from some other broker, and then they reach out to people like Monetize.ai or another broker trying to make a buck or two. And in the world of digital, internet, whatever you want to call it, I think the value you're adding to the supply chain is null if all you're doing is pushing paper around. That's been my experience. If all you're doing is pushing paper around from one person to another, I don't think the industry provides a lot of money for that kind of a value that somebody's putting in. The brokers that are making millions of dollars know the end customer deeply, like in a deep way. They know when the customer is serious and is ready, willing, able to move forward. When the customer will say they move forward, but they really don't have the habit to move forward. They know the customer in an intimate way. They know what the customer is thinking about. They know what options the customer has. In many cases, they have exclusivity with the customer. Like, they know the customer in a very unique way, where I find most joker brokers don't invest the time. They're not authentically, the keyword is authentically curious about the customer, the life of the customer, getting to know the customer. They're more in it in terms of they want to make $1 or $2 by pushing paper around. And so the ones that are closing $1 million transactions are doing the legwork required to build a character, to demonstrate authenticity, to getting to know the customer, the end customer, not another broker, but rather the end customer, the decision maker, deeply. I find a lot of the brokers that I meet have other brokers in between them and the end user customer, and they really don't know who the end user customer is. That's the one big one that I would say I see is missing. The second thing that brokers that are closing $1 million transactions in less than 6 months are doing differently is they have a process or they have a procedure that they walk into, and they simply follow the process day in, day out, day in, day out. When I say process, I don't mean getting a customer order from another broker or customer and then trying to shove it to somebody else. That's not a process. That's not a procedure. I could talk about LineOfCredit.ai. When a provider comes to us, when a bank comes to us, when somebody comes to us and says, hey, you guys are a private equity firm. I have for instance, a private placement platform as an example, or I'm a provider of banking instruments. One of the things we do as our process, standard thing we do, is we have our former FBI, former CIA people do background checks, forensic check on the provider. That cuts out all the fraudulent artists right there. And this process is not an overnight thing. You can't send it to an FBI guy and get a report in 1 second. It takes weeks, days, whatever, to do all that background checks. That's the work that we do. And by the way, we charge a lot of money for our fees. We're not a cheap organization or private equity firm by any stretch of the imagination. And the reason we're not cheap is because we invest a lot of money in our process and procedures, period. And I'm not even negotiating that. The second, I'm just talking about line of credit processes, but brokers that are successful have similar programs as well. Then I charge if the client comes to me and they're not transaction ready, like they don't have an SBLC in their hand, they don't have a business plan in their hand, they don't have whatever, I charge them a fee for my hour time just to spend time with them on the phone. I charge them a fee. And the only reason I do that is not because I need their fee for my lifestyle expenses. I actually don't. But by them paying money for my time, what they're doing is they're qualifying themselves to say, yes, I am willing, able, have the authentically, I want to do a transaction with you that's worth millions of dollars. So that's what they are doing differently. Like that's what I'm doing is I'm charging a fee up front just for my time. I'm not charging for the services. By all means, most of our income, if not all of it, well, I should say all of our income, but most of our income comes from on performance level when we close the transaction. But having said that, there's so many joker brokers out there, so many inauthentic clients out there that by one of the ways that in my process, I clean that up, what I call removing the junk leads from our pipeline, is I charge a small nominal fee for the person to be on the phone with me, assuming they don't have any of their paperwork ready. And that way, the people that we have in the queue are transaction ready and they're qualified. Those are some of the things we do as a private equity firm. If you're a broker in the industry and you want to close transactions, my 2 invitations for you to strongly consider is do things that others are not willing to do, are not prepared to do. You have to walk a longer walk to get there. That is, get to know the end user customer. Don't spend a lot of time working with a lot of brokers. Get to know the end user customer. Ask brokers you're working with to introduce you to the end user customer so that you can better serve the end user customer, but also help that broker, if you're working with a bunch of other brokers, helping that broker close the transaction. You have to be able to cut through the broker lines to get to know the end user customer. If you don't, you're chasing rainbows. The second thing is what $11 million brokers are closing on are doing is they have processes and procedures that they've invested time, effort into that helps them cut through rainbow chasing and work on transactions that will serve you. My name is Taimour Zaman. If you like this, video, please subscribe to our channel. Please press the like button, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with you. Thank you.